Awesome. We love. We love. Okay, I'm sorry. I just had to do that everywhere. I love this, by the way. It's just so solid and in the ground. Just, yeah. Anyway, welcome to the Side Sessions podcast. My name is Sai Jones, your host, and it's a lovely edition of the podcast today. I hope that I am speaking clearly because it's the first time using these beautiful mics. Anyway, as you can see, I'm sitting with someone right next to me. A gent, he's smiling. He's trying to smile. I'm sitting to somebody, and in my game, I want to go in a full introduction as to who he is, but I used to know him as Wyzee, and now he goes by his full ID name, Wiseman Ngubo, COO, CAPASSO. Imagine, guys. And the time I knew this gent, it was in varsity. We used to do radio together, and he used to be a DJ. And now he says he's a retired DJ. A retired DJ.
Yeah. Those are the times, man. Those are the times.
Wyzee. I can call you Wyzee, nah? Still.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome.
Yes, ma'am.
We can call you Wyzee. Sure. Welcome to the Side Sessions podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to have you here, simply because we haven't done a chat where we involve someone who isn't a musician, but rather is here to talk on the more official business, or rather, business side of the music. And as I understand, you're quite the pros, seeing as your executive position, by the way. How is that actually?
Stressful.
Really?
Yeah, man, heavy is the head. It's a very stressful job to have, and also it's one that I take seriously, so part of that stress is self-imposed. So but it's also a very fulfilling one. As you said rightfully, coming from the background where I could have easily found myself on the other side of the mic, it that allowed me to have a perspective of how the creative mind in the space, or the entertainers in the space, would want to have their business taken care of. So when I'm now on the flip side, I understand exactly how really the administration has to marry the creativity, has to marry the entertainment side, the glitz and glam side of things, and the aspirations of the talent behind it. So it's a very good thing. When I realized that, should I say, my talent wasn't going to carry me through to where I wanted to be, it was a very easy transition to say, okay, then maybe my smarts might be able to allow me to work and walk this path on the other side of the coin, man.
Let's actually talk about that path, ne? Okay, I knew in varsity that you were doing LLB and LLB, right? I knew that very well, but at the same time you were doing the radio thing and you're also doing the DJing thing. So I just want you to so that we can get to know you better. Just paint for me when you decided to make that decision of this is not for me, because you painted it for me, off air, but now we need to do it on air.
So firstly, I think the formal side of things, the degree side of things, a lot of that was, I'm a very risk-averse person generally.
What does risk-averse mean? I've never heard that word before. I'm sorry.
I don't like risking too much.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I don't when I take a risk, it needs to be very calculated. So the degree I was doing was one of those. I needed to have a degree that could possibly work anywhere. That was the mindset coming into the space. I never intended to practice law ever.
Wow.
From the get-go, I knew it wasn't my thing.
Sure.
Practice was just never gonna work for me. So I then needed to get the degree, but then luckily I knew I really, really liked music. Really loved it. In fact, at the time I mistakenly thought it was a love for radio, but it wasn't really a love for radio. It was because radio growing up was the only way I accessed music.
Sure.
I thought my love for music was radio. So that's how I eventually pushed to get into the campus radio station. At the time, I got in there through technical side, and I worked in the library.
Oh, yeah.
Best thing that ever happened to me. So I was cataloging music, after cataloging music, doing playlisting, and crucially, doing cue sheets. So in doing the cue sheets, that was my first introduction into actually the administration of music. Like, why is this cue sheet important?
Yeah.
Why do you need to fill it in the way you need to fill it in, and sort it out for all the specialist shows that we were producing shows for? And that's when I started realizing there's a whole other side of this thing, or on the flip, right?
Yeah.
That's when I was like, all right, how do I merge these two interests? And this is a conversation I had with myself probably second year, third year of varsity. And then the answer was, okay, you need to focus on intellectual property law.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, great. That's exactly what I'm going to do. And that's when, at the same time, I was pursuing this path. And at that point, it was a dual process, whichever happens first. Either the law side, or if this thing pops off, it pops off. At least I'll have that background element around it. And as we were going, as anybody really, at some point coming from a small town, the reality is, okay, you want to pursue a career in some way, shape, or form, find yourself in Joburg somewhere. And both of mine, either the job front or the entertainment side, all of them said, go to Joburg. And as I was saying before we got on air, the day I realized that the entertainment side, at least in being the talent, was never actually going to work, was a day in which we had a gig at Taboo. I don't know if we could say Taboo. Actually, we're just giving them mileage for no reason. We had a gig, mob edit here. We had a gig in one of the premier clubs in Joburg. They must cut the check, fam. Yeah,
true. They must cut the check.
Yeah, so we had a gig at one of the premier clubs in Joburg on a Thursday, student night. Great time, but then I realized that I was the only one waking up the next day, having to go to work and then perform optimally. And we had to leave the club in early hours of the morning, hadn't slept that well. I realized also the reality is, if I spent 10 years trying to pursue this, I needed somebody who was going to believe in me to unlock it. Whereas on the formal side, if I just followed the business side of things, no one was going to take away 10 years of experience from you. It's you just have it. Like, there's no, like, it wasn't dependent on somebody rating you, somebody opening the necessary door for you. And that's when I realized I could have a bigger impact on the admin side rather than trying to be the talent, because there's just too many of us. And also, I also realized I had built my name from a talent perspective in the EC, and it just wasn't going to translate in Joburg. It was going to be too difficult, and I wasn't willing to put the groundwork that I had put in the Eastern Cape down here. It was just easier for me to put all that effort into the business side of things, and that's how I eventually just said, okay, let's focus.
Yo, that's such a lengthy story, by the way. Just
Sorry.
So you know, because when you mentioned the cue sheets situation, as a DJ, when I have to submit to radios and then they ask for that, I find that task so tedious right now in my life. I'm like, yo, cue sheety. And I'm not the only one. All of the DJs, we find it tedious.
It has its people, and that's the thing that excites me, right?
Yeah.
Like, 'cause I'm like, now I now get to understand, and for me, it was a thing where if you think back to like the CDs. You used to buy a CD, pull the sleeve, read the adulations in there, the thank yous, whatever, the credits, and then you then read where this album was recorded, who the participants are, who the songwriters are, all of that stuff. The cue sheet to me mimicked that because I didn't really get a lot of time to collect CDs. I wasn't really gonna play them anyway. We didn't have a CD player growing up. So my access to everything was through radio.
The radio.
Like the radio was my thing. Like I knew all the specialist shows,
Yeah.
the right specialist shows to listen to, and all the top 40s.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
That was me. In front of the radio or the TV, listening to music every day, all day. And I then started trying to figure out who did this, who did that.
Yeah.
Like who were the songwriters behind it. And when I started DJing, I also did a lot of edits. Like so a lot of the edits, changing the music here and there, trying to figure out a creative way to display and put it out there to the people. It then also got me thinking around who are the people who did the beats. I need to get the separates from these guys. I need to get the vocals done correctly. All of that then effectively translates into you collecting what we call in the business side the metadata for the music, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's what essentially, to cut a long story short, that's the path I eventually, now looking back in hindsight, I could see I was just following the metadata. That's all I was doing.
Yeah, you
and that's
were
effectively
actually
what I'm doing now, right?
You were actually following the metadata and coming to rationalize everything right now. Essentially, I just want to understand, as now with your position, by the way, you got to where you got. When did you start the positions, if I may ask?
The current position about 2 years ago, but started working for the organization over 6 years ago.
Oh, I see. Okay, cool. Okay, so that's when then you made that decision. Okay, cool. This is the direction I want to take, intellectual property for music, because this is where I am. This is where I feel like I need to be.
Exactly.
Sure, that makes sense. Okay, now what CAPASSO versus Samro? What's the difference?
Right. Yeah. Let's get into it. So essentially, Samro, CAPASSO, Sampra, Echo, Impra, Risa Audiovisual are what we call collective management organizations. Most people call them collecting societies, but I hate that term, right?
I love that term. It makes so much sense.
It sounds like it's a stock fail. It's not. Like
It makes so much sense to me. I'll call it that, actually.
It's the Psy sessions, so let's call it collecting society, right? So what they do, in essence, it's a pulling of specific rights.
Sure.
So that you can then manage them collectively. So there's certain usages that, from a practical perspective, would never really work if, from an industrial perspective, if all the separate people who owned those rights had to give consent each and every time those works were being used. And I'll make an example. If a broadcaster needed to ask each and every songwriter for permission every time they needed to play a song, they'd never be able to play a song because you can't find this one. No, you don't know who the songwriters are, and and whatnot. So essentially, what the law does is, when you create a song, it gives you certain bundles of rights, right?
Yeah.
And in those bundles of rights, they give you certain types of controls. You control how the public interacts with that song, right?
Okay.
Whether the public, you control if anybody needs to reproduce that song. You control whether or not anybody can broadcast that song. You control whether or not anybody can perform that song, adapt it, or remix, etc., right? Those different controls are then managed differently. Those controls are essentially what all of these organizations that I've mentioned handle. They handle one or more of those controls.
Sure.
So CAPASSO, from a songwriter's perspective,
Okay.
if you've written a song or you've composed a song, CAPASSO handles what we call the reproduction right. So that control, you give it to CAPASSO. If everybody wants to reproduce, copy, or do something with your song, in a sense of taking one version of this song and creating another version this time, that's where CAPASSO comes in. Samro, again, from a songwriter's perspective, comes in from a perspective of performing the song to the public or broadcasting the song to the public. So it's actually a symbiotic relationship that they serve. They're serving two to three of the controls that the songwriter would have. So every time a broadcaster plays the song or performs that broadcasts that song to the public, Samro needs to come and play for songwriters. Every time somebody performs that song in public, i.e. a concert, etc. Someone needs to come and play to assist that songwriter. So what they do really is essentially put licenses in place with the users to allow the users to use the music without necessarily having to go back and forth through every songwriter.
Sure.
And at the same time, for the songwriters, the service is really to say, we'll negotiate licenses on your behalf in macro. So we'll go as a collective and say, for all South African songwriters, this is how much we want SABC.
Okay.
And then SABC says, okay, Sharp, we can afford this. And then we say, no, that is too low.
Is it a negotiation
Yeah,
process?
it's a negotiation.
Really? Oh,
yeah, it's
okay.
a negotiation.
I thought it would have a standard fee. Hori.
Ah,
This is how much you now owe.
No, it's a negotiation. And you don't want to have it be a standard fee because times change and the usage change. And also standardized fees effectively get locked in when the cost of living changes.
True.
So you want the negotiation to be market driven. So you go there and you negotiate. I mentioned a host of others. Let me quickly just run through what those
please
do.
Please do.
So in essence, whenever you listen to a song,
Yes.
there's effectively two copyrights that you are listening to, right? There's the underlying copyright, which is the original creation, i.e. the song itself, and then you have the recording of the song. So whenever you the people who come up or think of a song and compose it, or come up with lyrics and write them down, that's the first copyright. And then somebody then says, okay, that's great, this is a great song, I want to record it. That's the second copyright. Now you have, and this is what we colloquially hear saying the master rights of the recording industry and the music publishing industry. Two different industries.
Sure.
One for songwriters and one for record labels who've invested in creating the record, right? And so Samro CAPASSO represent the songwriters and their chosen music publishers, right? Sampra, on the other hand, represents the performing artist, i.e. somebody who might not necessarily have written the song, but has a great talent to perform the song.
Okay. Or covers as well?
Covers.
Okay.
So anybody who's lent their creative exploits in the creation of a record. Not necessarily created a new copyright in the song, but lent their creative exploit in and performed in the making of the record. So we're talking here, anybody who might have played the guitar during the session, all these session musicians played the keys, anybody who then was a backing vocalist. So you had some talent that found its way into that record. You didn't necessarily write the song or compose the song, but you lent talent into that thing. That's what we call performance.
Yeah.
That's what Sampra represents on the one hand. On the other hand, they then represent the enterprises that effectively lend their financial muscle in the creation of the record. These are the record labels, the people who fund the whole process. That's Sampra. And similarly, that's the same thing as Impra. So Sampra and Impra do the same thing. The only difference is Impra effectively focuses on the independent side of the business, and Sampra at the same time has a lot of independence, but also includes the majors in their process. And then I also spoke of Risa Audiovisual and Echo. What they do is, again, now you have a record and you have a song. Then you still have a music video. A music video is a whole separate copyright in and of itself. An audiovisual work. Record labels create music videos that end up on TV. Somebody needs to license that on behalf of those record labels. That's exactly what Risa Audiovisual does. That's exactly what Echo do. They will go in there. Echo is the Association of Independent Record Labels. Again, similarly to the Sampra thing, Echo represents purely indies. Risa Audiovisual represents indies as well as the three majors.
Okay.
So you effectively, it's a choice on which one you want to go with, depending on what how your business is structured. Yeah. So they then go and license the use of music videos or by the broadcasters. So that's essentially the long and short of how the collective management structure looks like in South Africa.
Yeah, that was honestly such a good breakdown of the collective management, and I understand everything right now, to be quite honest with you.
Perfect.
And so what I want to know is now, as a person who makes music, right? Let's just not say performance side of it, as in I make music, right? Do I now have to be signed up to all of them, or does it happen that I sign up to one and they all get my details? How does that
The
work?
reality is, and this is where bureaucracy comes in, right?
Sure.
The reality is, the way you are thinking is exactly how every creative thinks.
Yes, I know. That's
Because
why.
they hate the admin.
Yeah.
Because they hate the admin, right? Like, tell me to go to one place.
Yes,
And
just
so
one.
there. Unfortunately, it's not where we are as yet,
Yeah.
right? Because one, there's certain. I could go into the technicalities, like the different mandates you have to assign to each of one of them. All of these are different, but also just each of them have different databases of databases that they handle. So as it stands now, you have to become a member of each and every one of them, depending on what it is that you want.
Yeah.
Like you compartmentalize each and every one of those bundles of rights, or each of those controls I was talking about. So for the performance or the communication to the public of your performance, as somebody who lent a creative exploit as a performer, you go to Sampra or Impra. Yeah. For the performance of your song, or the broadcast of your song as a songwriter, Samro. For the reproduction of your song, CAPASSO is a
CAPASSO.
songwriter.
I'm saying it with you, so I know I have it as well, and I hope that at home they sing it with us as well.
You know, and then if you're a record label or an individual who owns a music video, you then go to either Echo or Risa Audio Visual.
Sure.
Yeah. Essentially.
I'm sorry. I need to clap for a second because it all makes a lot of sense. It all makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. So take note, number one. Take note. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. So now, I when things go wrong, when it comes to people having to complain, Hori, they don't get their rights managed well by these organizations. They complain that, hey guys, I haven't received anything, or whatever the case may be. I'm just wondering, on the flip side, what is happening when that happens?
So most of the time,
Yeah.
probably 9 times out of 10, it's a documentation problem.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. So basically, the music business is a data business. It's administration. We call ourselves administrators for a reason.
Yeah.
Like you are just administrating
Yeah.
small bits of metadata that relates to the song. 10 years ago, statistically, there were on average 2 songwriters per song. Now, on average, there's 6 songwriters per song. Each of those songwriters could be represented by a different publisher. That would mean in the copyright chain, there's 12 people in that copyright chain owning the song in multiple different various shares. Because it's not to say that there's a standard way in which the song can be divvied up. All of that is dependent on the negotiations that each of the songwriters who contributed to the creation of that song would have. So a very, very crucial element, membership to the organization, is just one half. In fact, it's the easiest part. The most laborious element is ensuring that you notify these organizations of all your songs at all times regularly.
Every time.
Like every time you finish a new song, notify with all the percentages that that you and your co-writers have agreed on, and that's the only way you can ensure that you are actually monetizing your copyright correctly. Like there's a whole publishing industry because of this. Like the task is so laborious. The publishing industry didn't start now; it started back then, and now we have way much data than we did back then. I mean, we've just processed probably, as of March, over, 962 billion lines of data. Like 962 billion, and I must say this again, 962 billion lines of data. there's no way Wiseman can see if your song is in that
Because
969
in those
billion lines of
lines,
data.
999 in
it has
those
to be
lines.
algorithmic, right?
Sure.
Like it's a system that needs to go through these things and sift through.
Sure.
And the system can only work with correct and full metadata. So make sure that you notify of the organizations, regularly check up on every single song you've ever written, every single split on those songs. If you do that regularly, you will get your money regularly. Most of the time, I haven't been paid. Okay, did you send a notification? No, hey, Sai said she was gonna send it. Sai is gonna send her notification, not yours.
Not yours.
Like,
True.
So that's a big part, and that's a big chunk of the work that we do. How do we operationalize the way in which people notify, and we inculcate that into the minds of the creatives. One, to just agree on splits. That's the first part. Like just agree on that when the song is done. That in and of itself is difficult. And after that, how do you then get them to notify? I have a team of people who sit there and literally call up people and say, listen, we've identified your song. We know it has earned. You have not given us the metadata. And you'd be surprised that it takes us over 12 months for that person to just finally sit down with the team and notify.
So some of you are choosing to not get your money.
No, and I understand, right? Because publishing money doesn't.
I do understand.
Yeah, like publishing money doesn't seem as attractive as performance money.
Yes, true,
right?
it doesn't.
Because you had a gig today, somebody's paying you 50 grand right now to perform right now. Next week again, similarly, and in a day you could have 3 gigs. Like that's 150,000 in your pocket right there and then. So it seems like a lot of money, but the earning span for that performance money is limited. Like on average 10 years.
Yeah, true.
If you're great, right?
True.
After the 10 years, that pot dries up. The administration pot then becomes a thing, and that administration pot, because this is a marathon, would have, like, even if it was 5,000 rands, it would be 5,000 rands, 5,000 rands, 5,500, 5,000, 3,000 rands here. But like it keeps going, and it's almost a perpetual tap for as long as your song has been firmly put into the psyche and the cultural aspects of the country. Will forever be listening to the song. Like a song like Tanai by Brahim will forever earn because we'll forever listen to it. Like there's no way you, like, even if it's June 16 and you are listening to a particular songs like Mbongeni Ngema's thingy, those songs are always going to be, because they imprinted into the psyche and the fabric of society, right? Like the more you write those types of songs, those are songs that you could earn with till you die.
Yeah.
And also the other flip side of publishing is there are songs that would lay dormant for decades, and then somebody remixes them,
pull up, like,
or something happens with it, and suddenly it gets a huge sync that gives it a new life.
Sister Bettina.
Sister Bettina. And people love it, and then it continues. Like and that's the thing. As long as your metadata is sorted and your paperwork from an administration is there, everything works.
So now we're speaking a lot about this metadata business and lines is what I want to call them. I'm just wondering, is there a threshold to the, like, since I don't know this all in my head, it sounds like a robot is doing it. So I'm just like, is there, for instance, a threshold to the amount of years your data can chill and you earn, and then it expires perhaps in the minds of
there's two things, right? Not even it's in the mind of the law, right?
Yeah.
So there's a certain thing called prescription in the law.
Sure.
It effectively just says a debt cannot be forever.
Yeah.
Like at some point the debt needs to,
Nivile.
like at some point. So, and generally it places that expiration of a debt generally in South Africa is 3 years. Like there's certain, even a crime after a point, like the statute of limitation expires, such that if you did something long enough, you can no longer be prosecuted, because it's just, and that's the way even with money. If somebody owes you money, and you know they owe you money, and you don't collect that money for 3 years, the law says, sorry, you knew you were owed a debt, you didn't collect.
You didn't collect.
Hade. And that's effectively what happens with royalties in
Sure.
most organizations. If you don't collect over 3 years, and it's not even by the rules of the organization, as I'm saying, it's generally just the application of the law. After 3 years, that money prescribes.
Yeah.
It flows back into the system.
Oh, okay.
Because you didn't identify it. Generally, in many different organizations, they have internal rules that allow the flushing out of that money.
Sure.
Because crucially also, these societies are non-profit organizations.
Okay.
So they can't keep money forever, like by design. Because the money is supposed to go back to its people and the owners of that money. But crucially, I must highlight this one thing, because as much as I'm speaking about the music generally, my current office is CAPASSO, right?
Yes. I love that, by the way. Thank you for just generally speaking about the community.
All right. So my general office is CAPASSO. So what we've done primarily with digital royalties is we're keeping it longer than 5 years. There's some monies that we've been keeping for years, because we're trying to get people to understand how this business works, how this digital aspect works. In as much as the law says one thing, we've implemented processes that allow people to come and claim their money for an extended period. So we're on a drive that says go and notify. If you're a member, you get a list of all the songs that we don't have metadata for, that says you might find your song in there. Look through it and give us the metadata, and it allows us to flush that money out for longer.
Yeah, because also the one thing that I know runs in a lot of people's minds, like we talked about, is that they don't know. Well, let me not say they don't know, but rather they don't pay attention to how much they could be earning within perhaps a year or two. You find that they are like, they underestimate how much they earned, so they don't check on everything. So that's why I'm just like, is even though the law does say, like you said, the prescription is 3 years, I'm just like, is that enough though? Because
now I'll tell you frankly, it's not.
It's not. Ne?
I'll tell you quite frankly, it's not. I find that the people who come in 3-4 years later, and that's the first time they sit there, and most of the people, as I said, remember what drives particularly songwriters who happen to be performing musicians, is what drives them a lot is the ability to perform every weekend.
Sure.
Most of them come when that dries up.
It dries up. True, that's true.
When that dries up, that's when they realize, wait a minute, I might have actually been forgetting some revenue stream here. And that's when they come and then they say, okay, I haven't collected for years. What happens? And then at that point, you start looking at all of these things, try to figure out how the money can be paid out, where it is, where it's sitting. Some of them, I must say though, like there's a music publishing industry for a reason. The whole job of that industry is to do exactly this, so you don't have to worry about it as a musician. But if you're a DIY musician and you want to do everything yourself, then you need to be cognizant of the fact that you need then to do the admin related to all of these things. You need to be the one sorting out all these issues, and it's an administration business. We find that it's somebody will find oh, my song was notified incorrectly. Oh, these collecting societies suck. No, the collecting society, it's an admin business. If you're getting administration for, I think this past March distribution, we paid over 83,000 individual composers. 83,000.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of, and as I said, remember these songs can have up to, like if you look at a song like Travis Scott and Drake's Sicko Mode. Yeah. There's 30 songwriters in that song. 30. Earning various shares down to like 0.something% of the song. So which means if 100 Rand comes in, you need to be splitting it.
Yeah,
like
to the 0.something.
If a Rand comes in, you need to be penny pinching to that element. Like, so like the calculation and all of these things, all it takes is you saying, no, I don't think this is correct, let's try and fix it, because it's an administration. With admin means you need to sit there, go through this thing, pardon me, correct the data where it's not correct, fix it. And because most people dedicate that thing to other people, like you co-write right now, we've entered into the studio, you and I, the juices are flowing, we write a really great song. Because the song is going to be on your album, I say, all right, chaps, I will sort it out. And even if we do agree and we say, no, it's a 50-50, Sai goes there and says 60-40.
It's 60-40, yeah.
And you don't do the same, because technically what's supposed to happen is we agree on 50-50. Sai goes and says 60-40. I go and write 50-50, and then immediately the system says, actually, there's a conflict here.
Yeah, and then
hey
what
guys,
happens?
come and
through.
sort it out.
Okay.
There's a conflict here. You're not agreeing on the share splits. But if I don't notify, the system can't get that conflict. So you might get the 60% paid to you the whole time, and then 3 years later or 4 years later, I come and say, no, but there's an additional 10% that you paid Sai.
Yeah,
but that's because I've taken too long to come and fix the metadata. It's absolutely pivotal that everybody understands split sheets. Even if you're not signing, and I think this is the other problem, and something I must highlight very crucially. Split sheets don't need to be a whole deed. You don't need to be assigned. It's just my name is Wiseman Ngubo. Sai Jones came when we wrote the song together. We agreed that we'll split it 50-50. Done. That's all it is. Like, that's literally.
I agree.
That's all it is. You then go sort out your business with your publisher. But all we have to agree on is we wrote a song titled Sai Sessions. Two of us were the songwriters. We agreed to split it 50-50 or 70-30, regardless, depending on how we would have contributed to it. And that's all. The rest of the paperwork is not necessary. It's literally a one-pager. And that saves you so much conflict down the line.
It does, really.
And I understand, because, as I said, having been on the creative side a bit, it kind of unlocked how difficult that is in the creative process to say, oh, great, now let's talk splits. Man, like, you're killing the mood.
And then the creatives don't like talking about money also.
It's a vibe.
Yeah, now we must talk about splits.
But even if it's something as simple as, and there's some apps that have been developed now where, like, each of us just log on and say, oh, we wrote this song together. Even at a later stage. Or even if you just send a WhatsApp, say, gents, this is how these are the people who partook in the process. This is how we've agreed to split it. Everyone confirm. Or one email post that thing. That could save a lot of things later on. And this is where also I feel like the managers in the process could play a very crucial role. In ensuring all this data comes in and gets sorted out. If it's not the manager, maybe the A&R in the process could come in and make sure that data is sorted out, so that maybe the creativity is not affected in a way. But it's a crucial part. There's so, you lose so much business because metadata isn't done. Even when a sync comes in, the first thing is the full metadata picture available. So you could lose R1 million because 5% of the song isn't there, and that 5% is so and so from where that you don't even know, but because Wiseman brought him into the session and he wrote one or two things, he owns 5% of the song. You lose R1 million sync. Because you can't get that 5% clear. So it's absolutely pivotal that metadata is cleared and sorted and available. It affects every single thing that you do going forward.
Yeah. Before we actually move forward, I just want to say, if you feel like throughout this conversation you've got any questions, just link them down below. Honestly speaking, we'll get to them. I need to get my thought process back. Ooh, metadata. I actually really love that word, by the way. Metadata. For a long time, I had no idea what it meant. I'm not gonna lie to you, I had no idea what it meant. Sharp. So cool. Everything is outlined. We sort of, kind of understand it if you don't run it back it's going to be clear. I'm definitely going to be running it back, to be quite honest with you, so that it imprints in my mind. Because the part where you said, really, you're right. As creatives, the one thing we dread is to talking about splits, talking about the money and the admin side of everything. And so when we mention the admin side of everything, there are people that can get that done for you, right? Correct.
Yeah.
And then also now you can't afford the people. What must happen? Can I just pull up and be like, I need the copy of my rights, of my mechanical stuff? Or I don't know what to call it. The actual term is. Can you pull up?
So the easiest resource you could use in the music business is the CMO, right? Like you come to my office. It's a free consultation that a lawyer will. Yeah, like the society.
Oh, yes. You abbreviated it without me knowing. And I'm just like...
it's a society. So use the societies.
Yeah.
You'll be able to get a split sheet from the society without having to pay a lawyer. You'll be able to get a deed from a PRO like Samro without having to pay a lawyer.
Yeah.
Like you'll be able to get a lot of advice from the society without having to pay a lawyer. So use them first. You find people have an issue with, I haven't earned, I must go fight with the lawyer. Why? Like that guy is going to charge you money. They billing. That's what they sell. They sell their time.
They say their time.
So only by the time when you know for a fact you need like legal representation. But going to a CMO, the CMOs are member owned. Speaking to your own company shouldn't require you to have a lawyer.
Yeah.
Or at least on the preliminary side of things.
Yeah.
Have that discussion with them. Come in, sit down, say, listen, I don't understand this, explain it to me.
Yeah.
And you should be able to get, even if it's not the holistic business side, unless you come to CAPASSO, because we focus on giving holistic and contextualizing our business within the wider scope. But you'd be able to get a consultation on what it is that CMO specifically does and can do for you. So because we play in the digital space a lot, there's a lot of confusion around how digital licensing work and the digital music industry work.
Yeah.
So we highlight that a lot in order to contextualize our value proposition within that space.
Yeah. So now, because this term digital has been ringing in my mind, by the way, you say you play in the digital space a lot. What does that mean?
So we, aside from being a CMO, we also a hub. So what that means is we represent 70% of all other CMOs on the continent in as far as licensing on their behalf for digital services. So with license, and you probably would have recently seen the licenses we've put in place with the likes of TikTok.
Yeah.
So in essence, we then license the full bouquet of songwriters' rights to these platforms like your TikTok, so that every time a song is being played or trends on TikTok, there's some revenue that comes back to the songwriter who wrote that particular song. And we do this across the continent, across all 54/58 territories, depending on your political affiliations. But we play in that space, and that's effectively what we've done in our value proposition to the market. We decided digital was what we were going to focus on early on, and we've done a really, really incredible job in ensuring that we license basically every DSP, as we call it, or digital service provider that comes into the continent.
Sure.
And we do that on behalf of all the songwriters on the continent.
I mean, I'm glad that you guys are doing that. And I did say, Goti, I saw the article, by the way, and I was just like, hey, why are they being so loud in terms of this? Haven't we been, I started questioning, Goti, haven't the licensing always existed across social media platforms, where you go on Instagram, you tag someone's song, Vele, you get, I was like, why are they being so loud about this? And you mentioned that TikTok was messy with how they managed their affairs in the beginning, but now they're trying to clean everything up.
I think so. Most of the time, why we don't announce licenses is because some of these companies are public entities. A lot of the publication elements then drive investor confidence or the lack thereof. So a lot of the announcements are driven by them, depending on how they want to be perceived in the market, right? So a lot of the things that they would have done is, you'll see TikTok generally now, since they started getting into these licenses, do tend to put that out there to the public. and collectively, when we finalize the deal, then say, okay, we want to put out a press release. We're like, great.
Sure.
We'd love to do it for everyone.
So we know as well.
So our members know. So like, if you come to an AGM, you'll find out.
Okay.
And that's another thing.
Yeah.
Please participate in general meetings at these organizations.
I was just like, AGM?
Yeah.
Y'all have AGMs? How dates? Where do you even announce that there are AGMs?
So the other way is make sure you follow these CMOs on all the
socials.
Social media platforms. The easiest way to disseminate information is the easiest way to learn about what's happening. Second, make sure you ensure that your email is up to date, and you'd be surprised how many emails bounce because somebody would have said, okay, right now, you interested in saying, okay, cyjones.com, right?
Yeah, and then
3 years later, you're no longer paying for the domain and it bounces. Just get the Gmail email that you look at after or whichever other one. Like if you like Yahoo, I don't know why you like Yahoo. But have that also in there, that generic email, and you know for a fact, or if you do have your own domain and you're no longer paying for the domain, update it so that at least the communication keeps going all the time, because these are things formal. Like there's no company in SA that can get around having annual general meetings if they're structured like that, because that's the law. You have to announce it at a particular time. You have to have one every year, generally. Present audited financials. That's when you get to understand how the business works.
True.
How to ask those questions that you need. Make sure you attend these things. Attend some of the workshops in the lead up, because then that's where they granularize some of the issues that might be macro, too macro to delve into at the AGM.
Yeah.
But go there, ask those questions. Ask that one question you would deem silly. Probably half the room is thinking about it.
Possibly.
Like, so ask that question. Like, ask the question. Demand to be treated with some sort. And there's an understanding that there's a lot of information that sits with us that you won't have.
Yeah, true.
But I won't know unless you ask. I might think, okay, this is the information I think members want, but it might not be what you're really, really looking for. So ask that question so that works, and work alongside the CMOs. So too many times people treat CMOs like I don't know, they're scared of them in a way.
Yeah,
like
true.
It's far removed. No, they like our business is an extension of the members' business.
And these CMOs just feel like home affairs to me, so
they shouldn't. They shouldn't.
Like, I'm trying to avoid a long line to get. They feel like home affairs also.
The mere fact that, for instance, I'm on the podcast.
Yeah.
Right. It's also because there's a realization in perhaps myself and the organization I represent that the information needs to be disseminated as far as wide as possible.
Yeah.
New media platforms are crucial for that, right? Like, so all of these things, like I'm generally on Clubhouse every Monday talking about the business side of music. We do as many workshops as we possibly can to try and get the information out there. But we're never going to reach as many people. Like, this is why you come to a pre-existing platform like this, right? Because who knows how many people are going to log on to this.
True,
and it's something that lives on. Like, so people will be listening and tuning into this episode a year from now.
Yeah.
That's far more leverage than I would ever get from a physical workshop. So all of these things are crucial. You get in there, you ask those questions, you move on. You get to the workshops, ask those questions, move on. And you get to the AGM and you participate. This way you vote on certain things.
Sure.
If you don't like the 3-year thing, you vote at the AGM and say, change that. You know, like those things.
I'm glad actually that I know that there are AGMs that are held. I won't lie, I'm not getting emails from anywhere. Maybe I need to go check my information there by the spots, by the societies, actually, so I can make sure that I get the correct information when there's changes or anything like that. And also, if you feel like you are not getting anything from the society, we're calling them the society now.
Okay.
We're calling them from the society. Please go on ahead and check information. And that's the one thing you've been emphasizing throughout our conversation. And I think also that kind of gives us a good way to wrap everything up, because I feel like I feel like in my layman's mind that you've managed to cover a lot that I feel like you've managed to cover a lot in such a small span of in such a little time. But also if there is anything else that I didn't manage to pull out of your mind, please holler at us right now. If there's anything else more that you feel like you need to be emphasizing, please holler at us actually right now. You, Wyzee. So we want to know.
I think let's see. Well, what is the main thing? I've hopped on the metadata, but I don't think we can. It can be overemphasized. Listen, the main thing is that. As I said, we've processed over 900 million lines worth of data, and that's primarily driven by the shift in digital, right? A year ago, we processed about maybe 600 million. So you can see over just the span of a year, that's how much consumption is happening on the digital platforms. So it's back in the day, people used to think, okay, I have a year to notify. You no longer have that year with digital, and it actually costs you money to have your metadata inaccurate or incorrect on the onset, and then correct it later. It's always better to match it upfront. Make sure your song has the full spectrum of everything, including the ISRC. If you have the ISRC, send it to all CMOs at once. And make sure you're no longer duplicating ISRCs, right? Like you find that people would have a distributor, they go to the distributor and they tell the distributor, generate an ISRC for me, because when they were uploading, they didn't put the correct ISRC. Okay, great. And then they go to RISA, ask RISA to generate an ISRC. Now the song has two ISRCs. One on the digital platforms, and then they take the RISA one and send it to broadcast stations. And now you have one song with conflicting ISRCs.
Yes.
It's going to cost you so much money to eventually marry those two songs. By money, I mean the collecting societies are effectively a business that says that costs members administration money. You can't bring the cost down if a lot of what you're doing is correcting inaccurate information from the start. We are a data business, and that data business, like anybody who's in data will tell you, garbage in, garbage out. So we need to correct information at the beginning so that everything moves slower and quicker and more efficiently going out there. And unfortunately, there's a lot of standardization that needs to happen within the music industry, and it's not an African problem. It's a worldwide problem, but it's more pronounced with us because we technically don't have the tools and the money to invest in those tools that our counterparts in Europe or America would have. So you find that a lot of songwriters in the continent aren't getting as much money as they should get because their metadata isn't solved. And some of the publishers that they might work with don't even have the capabilities to get the tools that they need. So just simple stuff. Like, know how many songs you've ever written. Have a spreadsheet of all the songs you've ever written or co-written, and have a spreadsheet of all the splits or your splits in those songs, and just keep that there. If you've kept that there, not only is it good practice, but also even at a time where people want to purchase catalog. In fact, I got like an email in my inbox that day. People are looking to buy certain piece of catalog from African artists, right? People can't sell the catalog, or you can't get through the due diligence stage because you yourself don't even know how many songs you control. Like you have no inclination of, I used to write 10 years ago, there was that album, and like just keep a spreadsheet, like just a simple spreadsheet. Name
simple spreadsheet,
like it's a title of the thing.
Spreadsheet is not simple.
Spreadsheets are simple, man. Spreadsheets are simple. Spreadsheets, like if you were to then see like the standardization forms and formats that we're working with now, there's something called CWR, which is a Common Works Registration, which is what essentially internationally we work with. The amount, if you put those standardization in a spreadsheet, you know how a spreadsheet ends at Z and then starts again at AA? It goes all it goes deep into the AAs.
The AAs,
and the
damn. I've actually never seen that part of a spreadsheet.
But that's how involved the data can get for a song. Like it can get extremely. Go into Tidal, right? Hit credits. And just see how many people play a part in getting one song out. Like it's incredible. And then compare that with the song, and I'm speaking to you now as somebody who puts music out there. And compare that, like go click on any one of Jay-Z's songs on Tidal, right? Compare all the information he has on there with yours, and then you'll see how much information you're missing from a metadata perspective.
Wow. That's good, actually. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that actually, just to see what I'm missing. Actually, yeah, I think everybody. I think you should do that as well. Go on ahead, do what he just said, and see how much information you're missing. Yeah, Wyzee, thank you so much for pulling up.
Sure thing,
and
madam.
for giving us
anytime.
You know. Yeah. Thank you for saying that, because like I said, put your comments down below. We want to do a live next time so that you can interact with him real time. And I feel like this was Wyzee's podcast today. Do the right thing.
I talk a lot actually.
And but it's good information, so that's good. Like it's just informative. So when you talk, at least it's informative. It's not just bubbles in the air.
I hope it really is informative.
It really is. Take it from me. I think it really is. I know that doesn't say much, but take it from me, because I feel like I've learned something. So when you feel like you've learned something, it's definitely informative. So link those comments down below. We're trying to do a live session with him next time. Let us know if you're keen on that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, do the right thing. Wyzee, thank you again for doing this. Do you want to link your details? Because do you tweet stuff like this, by the way?
Yeah, generally. So you can, I think, let me link the organization's details.
Please link the
at
organization's
CAPASSO
details.
Hub on all social media platforms. So we're talking CAPASSO HUB across all social media platforms. Myself, if you're trying to catch some of this information, I'm on Clubhouse every Monday at 6:30. Under the Clubhouse Sounds of the South. We sit there with a few of my mates, and we discuss the music industry in detail every Monday. Similarly, you can catch some of the stuff on Instagram. The Instagram handle is YZeeQ, so WYZEEQUE. That's a throwback to my DJ days. Yeah, I'd never changed it.
And that's good.
Just stayed like that. Similarly, what else can you follow? I think the website is www.capasso.co.za. That's www.capasso.co.za. That's CAPASSO. That's where you can sort out your membership. That's where you can get basically a lot of your initial questions answered.
Awesome.
You don't necessarily need to come physically to the office. You sort it out there, and you get your information in there. Email address, should you need it, it's info@capasso.co.za. So info@capasso.co.za. If you want to direct it directly to me, it's Wiseman N at Capasso. So WISEMANN@CAPASSO.co.za.
I love that. Yeah, directly to him. Anyway, for now, this is the side session. The side John saying, mwah. Catch you next time.